Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bella Dinh-Zarr, and I'm Vice Chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board. Investigators from the NTSB arrived here in Jacksonville at about 10 a.m. this morning to begin our accident investigation on the sinking of the Faro ship. The NTSB is an independent federal agency charged by Congress with investigating every civil aviation accident in the United States and significant accidents in other modes such as railroad, highway, marine, and pipeline. We also issue safety recommendations aimed at preventing future accidents. Before I go any further, on behalf of the entire NTSB, our hearts go out to everyone affected by this tragic accident, and our thoughts continue to be with them during this difficult time. Here's the factual information that we have right now. The Faro is a U.S. registered container vessel owned by Tote Maritime and operated by Tote Services. The vessel departed Jacksonville, Florida on September 30th en route to San Juan, Puerto Rico. On October 1st, the Faro lost contact and has been missing since that date. On October 5th, debris was located near Crooked Island in the Bahamas. There were 33 crew members on board. Although both the NTSB and the U.S. Coast Guard have authority to conduct marine casualty investigations, the NTSB will be the lead agency in this investigation. Both agencies conduct independent, though coordinated, investigations in order to avoid duplication as much as possible. Both agencies will work together to establish a factual record of the accident. Then after the on-scene phase, the Coast Guard will begin its Marine Investigation Board process. The NTSB will analyze the facts, determine the probable cause of the accident, and issue a report of those determinations. The U.S. Coast Guard will not participate in the NTSB's determination of probable cause. The investigator in charge of this accident is Mr. Thomas Rothroffy. Mr. Rothroffy is a senior maritime investigator with over 17 years of experience at the NTSB, and he is leading a multidisciplinary group of maritime experts. The NTSB team will be examining the following areas: operations, engineering, human factors, and survival factors. In addition to our investigators, we have specialists from our Office of Transportation Disaster Assistance on scene to help family and loved ones. Shortly after arriving on scene today, our investigators were briefed by the Coast Guard on its activities over the last few days. We also held an organizational meeting and established parties to our investigation. The parties are the Coast Guard, the American Bureau of Shipping, and Tote. The parties will provide technical expertise to the investigative process. Tomorrow will be our first full day on scene. Our investigative team expects to be on scene from 7 to 10 days. Our mission is to understand not just what happened, but why it happened, and to issue recommendations and findings to prevent this from happening again. We will not be determining the probable cause of the accident while we are here on scene, and we will not be speculating about what may have caused this accident. Since we're just beginning our investigation, we don't have a great deal of information to report now, but we will keep you informed by regular briefings and updates as we learn more. For the latest on-media briefings, you can follow us on Twitter, which is @NTSB, and you can also go to our website, which is ntsb.gov. So I'd be happy to take a few questions now. Yes, sir.
There have been mentions by family members and by others in the maritime industry wondering why this ship set sail at a time when you had a growing storm that very quickly became a hurricane.
So the question is, there have been questions from family members about why the ship set sail in light of the storm. And that is one of the aspects of our investigation. We will be studying the meteorological conditions and all of the factors that went into the decision-making to sail on that day and to continue sailing. That's just one part of our very detailed investigative process. Yes.
How can y'all determine what happened without finding the ship if the ship is not found? My understanding is it's 15,000 feet underwater. In what ways are you trying to find the ship?
So the question is, how can we do an investigation without the ship found? Our investigation is a very thorough analysis of all the evidence that's available. And that includes interviewing people. It involves a lot of paperwork, looking at the marine logs that are available. It involves looking at every aspect of the engineering of the ship and how these decisions were making. So that will be our first step, is to look at all of that. And we hope that when the ship is found, then we will have a voyage data recorder, the VDR, and that will be our first priority, is to look at that and recover that in order to find out more about the information.
And how would you recover it from a ship that's 3 miles under the surface?
So the question is, how would we recover the VDR, the voyage data recorder? Once we find out where the ship is, once we know where the ship is, then we'll have to determine, we'll be working with other agencies such as the Coast Guard and the Navy in order to use various methods in order to do this.
Do such methods exist? Are you confident that if you find the ship, you can get to the ship to do what you need to do?
So the question is, do such methods exist? And yes, there are many methods for deep sea recovery of data recorders, but again, we should wait until we actually find the ship to decide how we can do that and whether we are able to do that.
Do they have pingers like on aircraft?
So the question is, are there pingers? And in this case, yes, the voyage data recorder is an instrument that activates upon touching water. So once it is actually in the water, it will begin pinging, and it has a battery life of 30 days.
Has that been heard?
The question is, has the pinging been heard? And not to my knowledge.
How difficult is it, a hurricane was in the area, there's other debris. I know you guys have different people for different specialties. How difficult can it be as far as looking for certain things directly connected to the El Faro and not just debris from something else that became a hurricane?
So the question is, how difficult is it to differentiate between the El Faro debris and other debris? And we know that the Coast Guard has been hard at work, and they've been looking at that, and there are ways to identify debris, but during this search phase, the Coast Guard is making their best efforts. And of course, the NTSB will take the time to look at anything that's recovered.
What
Yes.
assets are available to, I know there's been a lot of assets used to find this potential survivors. What assets will be used to find the ship? And who will be in control of those assets? Will it be the military, will it be the U.S. Coast Guard, same thing, or will it be NTSB that's directing where they search?
So the question is, who and what assets are being used to find the ship? The Coast Guard is continuing their search. They're using their assets, and as well as I think they're getting assistance from the Navy. If the ship is found, then we'll determine what will happen after that.
How will
Yes.
the evasive maneuvers that the ship took in relation to other ships in that area figure into the investigation?
The question is, how will the movement of the ship, how will that affect the investigation? We will be looking at all of that. We'll be looking at the marine logs. We'll be looking at any electronic data that we have, and that will factor into the investigation so that we know exactly what course the ship took and what happened to the ship. And yes.
Are you looking at email correspondence between the Coast Guard, Toad, and the captain about the voyage before they left and also during that voyage?
So the question is, will we be looking at email correspondence and other correspondence? We will be looking at everything. So we leave no stone unturned in our investigation, in our analysis. We want to find every bit of information that we possibly can in order to figure out what happened and do it accurately and report that to the families and to the American public. Yes?
Can you tell us how the meeting with the families went earlier this evening?
So the question is, how did the meeting with the families went? I respect their privacy, but I did meet with them and gave them the information that I'm giving you in order that they would be prepared to hear it in advance.
Did they have any specific questions that they were looking for, that they would like you to answer, or anything specific about the investigation that they had questions or concerns about?
So the question is, did the families have any specific questions? And I think they are definitely very sad, and it's a very difficult time for them. So they didn't have any questions at this time. But we have a family assistance group that is fully prepared to maintain contact with the families and help them understand the investigative process and any of the findings that we might find.
We're close to 7 days since the last communication from the Faro. How important is it, I mean, you guys are getting here a few days after, how important is the first 24 to 48 hours for your investigation to this, in reference to you guys trying to get as much information as possible?
So the question is about the timeliness and how important is timing to the investigation. When we arrive on scene, our sole purpose is to figure out what happened and why it happened. And our first priority is really to look at things that might be perishable. So any of the electronic records that might be perishable, anything that might be recovered. If the data recorder is recovered, we would want to preserve that in as detailed a way as possible so it's not corroded. So when we arrive on scene, we hit the ground running and we try to get the information as fast as possible and as quickly as possible. But we will keep searching and keep looking at the information for as long as necessary to get the answers we need.
What could you get from the voyage data recorder? What are the things that you would hope to get from that?
So the voyage data recorder has a lot of information. It would give information about everything that happened in the 12 hours before it actually hit the water. Yes?
There seems to be some conflicting information about the search for survivors tonight. In your talk with the Coast Guard, could you speak to that at all?
So the question is about the search for survivors, and we are leaving the search and rescue portion to the Coast Guard. They are in charge of that aspect. We are looking purely at the safety investigation. Yes.
Can you talk about what?
One more question. Yeah.
You talked about looking at mechanical records. Can you talk about what you might be looking for in some of those past records?
So we look at many factors related to a ship, the engineering, the mechanical factors. The question is, what mechanical factors do we look at? The mechanical factors are the maintenance, what type of ship it is. There are other similar ships, so sometimes we will look at a ship that's very similar so we can see how it operates.
Was Faro supposed
One
to
last
be taken
question.
out of service soon?
So we believe that it was, they were considering looking at some of the different aspects to see whether it was going to change service, they were considering taking it out of service. I don't have all the information. I think you'd have to talk with the Coast Guard who's doing that investigation for that part.
How many investigators do you have here altogether?
So thank you, and we will keep you updated on other updates, and you can talk to Peter Knudsen, who's our public affairs officer, and we will have another briefing tomorrow. Thank you.